Hi, I'm Carol Ann Tutera. I've spent the last 2 decades advocating as we age to embrace aging, being authentic, in what I call the Sotapelli lifestyle. Hi, today's guest is Brad Soden, and I'm going to tell you about an amazing love story of faith and intervention between him and his wife and what's happened with their life story to where he is today. Brad is the inventor of Wall-E. And when I first met you a couple years ago, Brad, I loved that story. And I love the little character. And all I have to do is say Wall-E, and I picture that little character running around.
Yeah.
So tell everybody else your story about how Wall-E came about, because he was your first invention. And then we'll go into all the other inventions after that.
Sure. Wall-E, the chassis and the movement was, they used me for a model. And what it is, I made a wheelchair for my wife, but it was unique. It was the first one in the world on tracks. So after I made it, then Pixar, and we kind of went viral. It was the first of its kind. So as we were viral out there, Pixar reached out to me and said, hey, can you come down? And we have this character we're doing, but we want you to drive around and see how it reacts. We want to see how the character is going to react. They're very detail-oriented at Pixar, so they wanted everything on how it reacted and turned and all the little details.
So how did they get your attention?
They called me on the phone, but it took a couple of calls. I had a friend named Shane, and we like to play jokes on each other. So the first time they called, actually 2 times when they called, I thought it was my friend Shane messing with me because, here's this big, everybody knows Pixar at the time. It was Cars, it was Toy Story. And then
there's Brad Soden.
Yeah, then there's me in my garage. I'm just all stinky and sweaty, and I get a phone call and I was like, hey, you want to come down and be part of this movie? And like I said, I thought it was my friend goofing on me, so, said a couple of dirty names, told Shane to shut up, and I hung up the phone a couple of times. And it was like the third time, I'm like, listen, this isn't a joke. Please don't hang up on us anymore. And then, after that, we started planning a trip to go down to Emeryville in California, which is where their studios were. And we took the chair down there, and that's, it was fun.
So you got to go on set, and you operated Wall-E then?
Yes, we couldn't say anything. They made us sign all these secret papers.
Sure.
Apparently it takes 5 years to make these movies from start to finish. Every second of Pixar is 500 man-hours. So, yeah, they have this big, massive studio down there, and it was when Steve Jobs owned it, and it was really cool. Anyway, so, yeah, we were down there, and they put a tomato box, and they cut it out like the shape of Wall-E's head, and they stuck it on my head. And then they brought all this trash and dirt out there, told me to go drive around. And while I was driving around, there was a whole crew of cameras and microphones. Everybody was running around and chasing me. And they said they were getting just the little details from how when the wheels are spinning and all the dirt, how it kicked out of the middle of it. That's what they wanted, was all the details. So they took a whole bunch of videos of in different situations, and they drew that into the movie.
So tell us about your background then, and how it got up to that.
So I'm just a, lack of a better term, I'm just a redneck hillbilly. I didn't even finish high school. I was, when I was going to school, they didn't really know what to do with me. I would process information so fast that I was a disruption in class because I got bored. So I got in a lot of trouble. If you can imagine, in a small town with one stoplight, and so I was just...
You were all over the place.
I was. By the age of 12, I had burned down 3 houses. I was already playing with accelerants, and I was just trying to figure stuff out. I ended up, by the age of 12, burning down 3 houses, which in Parker, with one stoplight, it was a big scandal. And so, that was the start of it. But that's all the type of stuff I was doing. I was just...
You're trying to figure things out and how they worked in life.
I did, yeah. Ironically, later on, when I became a fireman in Parker, after my time in the Army, the assistant chief and the fire investigator that was there when the house was burned down, they were there when I made it past probation. They gave me my badge and glad you're on our side now. So, quit doing that. So it was pretty fun.
Yeah, I think that's a little ironic. You were the kid burning them down. Now you're the guy who's saving the houses.
You'd be surprised. A lot of firemen themselves are firebugs at heart. They just like it.
What goes around comes around.
Yeah.
So I'm going to share your story between yourself and your wife because I think it's just absolutely incredible what you have done for her. On August 15th of 99, the Soden family experienced a tragedy that would change their lives forever. While Liz was driving the truck, the front left tire blew out. She lost control of the vehicle and the family crashed into an embankment. The crash left the boys bruised up. Brad had a broken leg, and Liz's injuries were far more traumatic. She ended up breaking her back. This injury left her paralyzed from the waist down. The Sodens wanted to continue their active family lifestyle and enjoy the type of family and personal activities they always enjoyed with the limitations of a traditional wheelchair. Driven by the goal to allow his wife to have more accessibility, Brad Soden invented Tank Chair. This innovation would not only help his wife overcome some of the obstacles she faced with her confinement to a typical wheelchair, but others facing the same challenges. So, tell us more about Tank Chair.
Everybody asks what it is. It's just a love story. You want to make me mad, make my wife cry, and that was it. We were at a campsite, and most families, after something like that, was a tragedy, they try and maintain what they were doing. They don't want to change anything. Obviously, it was changed, and going camping is not designed, and wheelchairs weren't designed for that. So we were at a campsite in the Wallapies by Kingman, and woke up one bright and early morning, and it was just the most coolest thing. These wild elk were just walking through our campsite. I mean, they didn't care we were there. They weren't scared of us a bit. So just to sit there and literally you could reach out and touch these things if you wanted to. They were just staring at us. And so I got all the kids up. I'm like, come on, let's go walk with these things as far as we can. And we got Liz in her chair, and my kids were 5. They wanted to help, but trying to push Mom in the wheelchair, and the wheelchair kept getting stuck, and I was picking her up and going, and the elk were getting scared, so they were trotting off, and she just started crying. She's like, just go on without me. And I just found that unacceptable. Just the way it was, it just came on, just go on without me. It was just
a heartbreaker.
It was. So there she was. She was crying and wanted to make it better. So I told her right there and then I'd figure something out. And it took me 2 years and a lot of time in the garage, but I did it when the first one that came out with it. And our first maiden voyage, if you will, is I took her to the north rim of the Grand Canyon. And the first time since her accident, the boys were a little bit over 7 now, and I got to sit in a campsite with my son. We could just sit there and enjoy it. And Liz went off and hiking with her daughters for the first time since the accident. It was pretty cool.
So tell people, because they can't see the chair, so try and describe the chair. I've seen it, and it's pretty cool. So explain to them the best you can as to what made it so different and how it was able to roam about like it did.
Sure. It's a tank. It's 2 tracks, triangular tracks, got a big sprocket and a drive wheel. And
like an army tank.
Yes. Most wheelchairs, while they're round, once they get into sand or loose impediments, the surface area of the wheel becomes small and creates almost no drag, and that's where a lot of cars and trucks get stuck, is just the round tires. So whereas a track, you could take out a very long footprint and it can grab a lot more surface area. So obviously for that reason in physics, it's easier to move a track vehicle through a whole bunch of really bad terrain as opposed to a wheeled one. So we went away from the wheeled one and we used a track system. Now, the bad part about it is it takes a lot more energy to move a track system, as there's a lot more resistance and a bigger footprint. So our challenge was putting enough juice and controlling it through the 2 different motors that a single person with the joystick, just like a wheelchair, could, because they were not designed for that at all, and I was using technology out there to try and make it work.
So when you came up with this idea, I hear people who hear music in their head and they hear songs or they have visions at night. How did this come to you?
It was out of sheer frustration. It was first of all, if you can remember back in those days, Tim the Toolman Taylor, and you used to add more power. And that's what I was trying to do with the big wheelchair. And I was using bigger tires, and everything was just bigger, stronger, faster, and more power. But I was still going off the premise of the wheeled one. And I was so frustrated in the garage. And then it was actually my father-in-law that came by, and he's one of those, you know what you ought to do is type of guys. He was sitting there, and he was just trying to be helpful. But he looked at it, and it was a lot of money and a lot of time I put into this thing. And I was mad because Liz still couldn't go out. And then she says, it'd be really cool. She says, you can make that thing like a tank, like an army tank. And it wasn't a bell, but it's like the clarity inside my head.
A light bulb.
Yeah. And it was just, everything fit. And then all the processes and things I've done wrong and those big sprockets, now I just transferred the math and all of it into a smaller sprocket, and it just kind of came together. And it was fast. And once I had that, it was moving downhill. And went down to the machine shop, made some parts, made it adapt, and the first one was actually finding tracks that would do this on a commercial availability that anybody could get. And I ended up calling a company in Canada at the time. They make these track adaptions that you don't see much in the desert, but they put them on quads and UTVs up there in northern Canada, so you don't have to buy a snowmobile. So I used their adaptation, brought it down, and made it fit on a wheelchair. And there again, it was fun. So, yeah.
That's a great story. Absolutely. You are so creative and so cool, in my opinion. Yeah. So cool how you are wired to know this stuff. You just know it. And if you don't, you know where to go to find the answer.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I just said it's just, seeing my wife, you met her, big smile. It just lights up a room. So the fact that, she got to go out and do that, and it was really cool. It was that first trip through the forest, and then it was, like I said, it was just being a family and her being able to do stuff with the kids. 'Cause, you have kids, your family. I heard you talking about earlier. Family's most important, and you can really give your kids, your family, nothing but memories as you go on in life. So she got to make memories with her daughters and her sons and our kids that she wasn't able to do before. It was really cool.
That's a bonus, absolute bonus. And now I know you've taken the chair into another direction. So what are you doing now in the way of helping her and helping others?
Well, we're taught as a society it's not polite to stare. Now, my wife, when I first met her, she stopped traffic. She still does, but I remember her walking in, and I was just, God, that woman's gorgeous. I gotta go say hi. But as you go on, and he said, as we are brought up, it's not polite to stare kind of thing. When I started making Mongo with the big flashy wheels and the coolness, and I put a big wow factor on it, my wife, who was in a smaller chair before, that people would not stare at her, not talk to her, and literally would shun her sometimes so they didn't have to deal with her. Now she became an ambassador for people in wheelchairs. So whatever ails her, you get in a chair, we call it the prom queen effect. Everybody wants to come over, say hi, and she's up waving, and we go out, she gets swamped, and she steals the show and whatever she's in. And then everybody knows somebody that's had an elderly parent and what they can't do. And the fact the chair goes fast, it's like a car for her. It can get up to...
So explain what you and I are looking at in her chair, because this is a chair on steroids.
So it's basically a wheelchair, but
it's not.
Well, we made the wheels the star. The wheels itself, if you can imagine, they're 21-inch Harley-Davidson front rims. And these particular ones here are, we call the spiderweb design. It was a limited edition run by Jesse James, and he was doing these custom. So we got two of them. It was really cool. And then we took motorcycle fenders, cut them in half, and inverted them on a box. So when Liz sits in it, she's sitting between the two fenders that we cut in half. And the design is all about speed and safety. So while she is sitting, her butt is sitting right over the center of gravity for the wheels. And these big 21-inch wheels, they said, just flash and then once you get going, it's the same motors I use in the tank, but now, because the wheels are so much bigger, it goes way faster. And she can get up to 25 miles an hour in this thing, but it's to see it and describe it is basically just two big shiny chrome wheels, and then the rest of the body is hidden underneath, but it's all very functional, and everything balances off the two big wheels.
Yeah, and she's got the American flag surrounding her too.
Actually, can I say what studio we're at? And so the guy that owns the studio, Bob Parsons, has a shop down here. I've always been jealous. It's called Spooky Fast Customs. And inside the shop, he has some of the most talented people. One of the people he had in there was this guy that airbrushes by hand, and the guy is a Picasso. So when I wanted to do this chair, I told him what I was doing. He said, send me the frame, paint it white, and I'll take care of everything else.
Oh, wow.
So we went down.
Did it.
Yeah, we powder coated the whole chair white, and with that, he took the pieces, and everything you see there, it's a hand-painted flag on one side. I'm going to try to describe this. One fender is all stars. The other fender is all stripes. And he took the body in between and meshed it together. So it looks like a flowing flag in the paint job. And it's really cool. It's artwork. And I said, this guy down here for Spooky Fast Customs he does some amazing stuff.
Yeah, it's beautiful. That's a very nice chair. She's a lucky lady to have you. Very. Because even the back of the chair, I'm looking at it and going, that kind of looks like my chair at the office. That's kind of comfy.
Well, we used a racing seat on it, and it's actually more for functionality than comfort. But when you do go 25 miles an hour, I'm my own crash test dummy, and if you wreck at 25, it hurts. So I put this on basically for safety, that she could strap into this big racing seat. And if the chair tips or goes aside, the seat takes all the abuse and not the person.
Oh, my God. You thought of everything.
That's what I try and do. I have the ability to get up and walk out of the chair. She doesn't. So everything.
Cup holder. She needs a cup holder.
We have cup holders.
Oh, my God.
We have adaptions for people with computers. I made one for a troop who unfortunately he was a sniper victim and got shot through the part he couldn't speak when the bullet tore through his voice box. So I figured out a way that he can use his head, was the only movement he had, that his head can go around and instead of having those big, expensive computers, like most famous one would be like Stephen Hawking, he could use his eyes.
Right.
Well, those things are god-awful expensive, and not everybody can get those. So I basically took that premise, hacked an iPad, and made the iPad talk to the head array that he had on his wheelchair, and he got to talk for the first time just by wobbling his head. And it's just stuff like that. I see her, when I see my wife in a chair, I want to make it better. And my wife is not unique, and there's so many people out there. Handicap is the one true equal opportunity. It doesn't care what color you are or your demographic is. Right. So, yeah, I try and and make things better, and people come up with what they want to do.
That's nice. And I know you like to work with the vets a lot. Yeah. So talk to me about that.
So I'm a vet myself. I'm a combat vet, and you've been in a firefight, and you've seen the evil of humanity when you walk off the field, and you're lucky enough to do it with your parts. You really appreciate it when your brothers are doing it, and sisters. I've been there and seen guys leave some of their parts on the battlefield, and we all do it for this great country we are in. And the reason we can do this is because there are guys like our vets that'll do the dirty work when it comes down, and be violent when they have to, so we can live in a society where we don't have to worry about oppressive natures. So.
And how are you helping them?
They come to me if there's a problem, and I try and, when everybody tells them no on what they can't do, I try and figure out a way they can. When it comes down to working, well, now what I'm trying to do is, when we're setting up the new system, is these guys come off the battlefield, they know how to shoot guns and know how to blow things up, but there's not really a big call for that in the civilian world. So when they...
I don't think so.
Yeah, they come back and instead they want to do something. They want to be productive.
Right.
They have families, but they're missing parts.
They want to get back into society the best way they know how.
So I don't... Like if a guy's missing an arm, but he wants to be a carpenter, technology's here. We'll build them, that prosthetic arm. We'll turn into a drill, a saw, a screw gun, anything. He can go out and he can go. It's just the coolest thing, coming home and having a paycheck, providing for your family, part of being, the whole family unit. So,
right.
That's what we're trying to do now is.
So how did these guys find you? Because I know you were involved in a lot of different vet groups.
Well, a few years ago, when I was doing the tank chairs running around, Liz and I were featured on the Today Show. And then after that, it was Bill O'Reilly. He did high-tech wheelchairs for the troops. So as I was a vet and the first one to make it, and I was part of the whole media circus that was going around, and, it was a lot of patriotism and everything going on. So from that, I got to go out and go to almost all the states and deliver chairs, and it is just the coolest thing in the world when you get a guy that can and just watch when him or his family and he gets off the couch, and the same feeling I saw when my wife was going through the North Rim, I get to experience it all over again through somebody else's eyes when they got to do something with we had one guy that he had a little boy that never knew his dad. He was born and then his dad was walking, but by the time the kid grew up, his dad's always been in a chair. So the dad went out with his wheelchair and used the tracks to start moving the ball around. He was playing kickball with his kid, and his kid, it was so cool watching him on the grass having fun doing that, and wife was crying, I was crying.
Oh, it gives me goosebumps.
It's just, I guess I get to experience with other people the same experience I did with my wife over and over and over. It's really neat.
And then I've seen a wheelchair that you've built where your wife literally stands up.
Yes. Yeah. The human body is not made to sit down its entire life, and then there's complications that come from it. So the easiest way of doing it is to basically get off your butt. And there's been standing frames. There's been a whole bunch of other technologies, just, again, so specialized and god-awful expensive. So my wife started losing weight, and if she sits on her butt, she can get pressure sores, which can ultimately kill her. So the best thing to do is just to get her off her butt and do it safely. So I made her one of my big Mongos, and I put basically it's just a hydraulic system. She pushes a button, it stands her up, and then she could drive around while she's standing up. And when I made the first one, there's a video I got when she was first walking around the house, if you will, and we've been in the house 15 years, and before I made this for her, and first thing she did was she drove over to this cabinet where we have all the coffee cups, and the first thing she did was she opened it up, and she got to pull a coffee cup out of the top counter without using a stick or leaning. And it was just the little things in life that you just take for granted. And she went over and pulled a coffee cup down, and she had tears in her eyes, and she was like, I wanted to do that for so long. So, it's a little thing like a coffee cup. Again, it's those little moments in life that you'll never forget. Right. You're a big hero. And yeah, you are. You're a big hero. Never been comfortable with that. That's okay. You're doing a lot for a lot of people, and that's fantastic. Thank you. And I know you're working on a new fun project now, so talk to us about that. Okay, so my buddy Jim McMahon, Chicago Bears, I met him through your organization, and turns out he and I share a lot. We have the same personality. He's just a really neat guy. We were sitting there trying to figure out what we can do to basically have fun. There's a lot of stuff you see on TV, that train wreck TV, and it's old. People tune in because that's what people think they want to see, because they don't know anything else. So McMahon, he's really good at being funny. He's really good at drinking beer. He's got all these great stories, and he's one of the most gracious, truest people you'll meet. And you go out and anyway, he will come in there and he will sit there and talk to the vets and everything. So we wanted to take his personality with my personality and come up with something. And we ended up, now we're making a show. We're in the process of putting this thing together. But basically, instead of wheelchairs, which are cool, they're not really a big wow factor on TV. When you add jocks and nerds and beer and robots, then the next evolution is you got to put guns on them. And then so we started doing that. Now we're going to basically take these little robots, but there's going to be live weapons on them. When I'm talking like the minigun from Predator, the 50 cal, just these big, massive weapons. And we're going to go out to the proving grounds, and it's the ultimate. It's all going to be remote control, obviously. Mm-hmm. But then these two teams and these players will be going against each other. And, it's the last robot standing wins. But it's not like you see on the other shows with other robots. This is literal. It's not scripted. It's you have a lot of fun. You build the stuff. But then the climax is...
Who's going to outlast each other?
It's time to quit talking, time to actually get down to business and see who made the best robot. And, it's opened up a lot of premises and stuff is going. It's really neat. It's just morphed into something, and it's getting bigger by the day. And I said, in the military world, got a lot of rock stars. Some really cool guys are going to be on the show. Jim has opened up his phone book. He's got a lot of really high-end personalities that are coming in. It's going to be pretty neat.
Nice. So we're all about aging gracefully.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
And I know that you're on the hormones.
Yes, ma'am.
So tell me, how has aging affected your work, your lifestyle, without hormones?
Oh, no, this I tell people all the time. When you're in your 20s and you're a guy, you're bulletproof. You can go and, drink for an entire weekend, bounce back and go. You get in your 30s, family slowing down, you get in your 40s, then if you go out and you have that same beer, it takes you a whole weekend to recover. It's a part of getting older. So I was, before I started the hormone therapy, the only way I could keep going was sucking down coffee, just to keep, your body just dives down and goes lower. Then I saw the change. My wife, she originally started doing the hormones first, and I watch her every day, and her energy level, I was like, wish I can get on that and try it. So I did. And I'm telling you now, I'm pushing 50. I'm 49. I'm in better shape. I don't know if shape is the right word. I have all the wisdom and experience of somebody that's 50, but I have the body and the recovery time, the sex drive, which is great, of somebody's in their 20s again. So it's, I'm where I'm at. Oh yeah,
you're living.
Oh yeah, I'm
living
walking
large.
I'm walking around and I got my shirt off and everything. I'm proud of doing it, and it's
good for you.
The whole recovery and that was the big one I noticed, is the recovery is so much faster, and then the energy. And again, when you're in your 20s, you could eat a whole cake, and, it doesn't affect your body because your metabolism, everything's burning so fast, and you can't do that when you get older. Now I can, again, it was the same thing. My body started just burning fat off again. I'm lean and ripped. And again, I go back to having the mind of somebody at my age, but then also having the body of basically a 20-year-old. It's a win-win.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. So final question.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you find joy in life now?
Where do I find joy?
Yeah. What brings you happiness and joy?
Liz, it doesn't, I live for whatever makes her happier and better. You ever see my wife and that big smile she has? So, and her smile and the things she's done, it just continues to drive me, because I get to share what I've learned with her and other ones. But then the neat part is I get to get up and bounce out of bed and do it instead of rolling out of bed and creaking and groaning. So it's fun just to jump back into life, and looking forward to, like I said, waking up and doing some special stuff every day. That's I say, we never know what we're going to build or what we're going to do, but we're going to have fun, and that's a neat part about what we're doing here, is we get to build and find out.
You're a special, special guy. Keep building.
Thank you.
Thank you for showing up.
Much.
So, here is your assignment for the week until we meet again. It is important for you to think about, what can you do to celebrate you? What's going to make you happy? What's your authentic self? Let's hear what you've done. Make sure you let us know what you're doing to take care of yourself. Did you go out and see the sunset? Did you go see a sunrise? Did you give someone a smile today? Did you hug someone for no reason? What's one way you can celebrate yourself and report back in.